Welcome to CEO Interviews, a production of Agoracom, in which we take the time to speak with small cap executives about developments at their companies. And with us today, because there are a lot of developments at his company, Cameron Shell, Chairman and CEO of Draganfly, trades now, I'm happy to say this, first time I'm going to say it, on the NASDAQ, on the stock symbol DPRO, and same symbol in Canada on the CSE. For those new to the story, because it may have caught your attention, especially for American investors down south, Draganfly is not your recreational drone company. In fact, they're a creator of cutting-edge drone solutions, software, and artificial intelligence systems that revolutionize the way organizations can do business and service their stakeholders. They're recognized as being at the forefront of technology for over 22 years. They're award-winning industry leaders serving the public safety, agriculture, industrial inspections, security mapping, and surveying markets. More than just lip service, 2020 revenue, $4.4 million, up 216%. Q1 record revenues, $1.55 million, up 210%. They recently closed a $20 million financing, 5 million shares at $4 a share. And finally, just list on the NASDAQ, and a whole bunch of other milestones, but we can't reach them all. Cam, welcome back, my man.
George, I mean, you get me pumped up. I love it. I'm like, yeah, I guess we did get all that stuff done. It's amazing. So, hey, so great to be here. You're always so gracious, and thank you.
Oh, thank you. And trust me, I've got 20 other bullet points, but I figure people don't want to hear from me. They want to hear from you. So the biggest news, obviously, you just started trading less than a week ago, officially on the NASDAQ. First of all, from all shareholders, including me, to you and the team, congratulations. How is this going to change the life of the company, both on the capital market side and the business development side?
Yeah, it's been an incredible experience. So, Draganfly has been around for 23 years, and we traditionally have been an IP development shop, contract engineering. We've done some, obviously some product development and commercialization, building a brand. But 2 years ago, there was, we felt it was time to actually become a product and services company and really build a brand. And so at that time, we went public here in Canada and on the OTC, and we did a financing, 50 cents a share, Canadian, and started building our business. And then we did another financing here back in February at around 50 cents US. And then we just completed this last financing at $4 a share, which would be the equivalent of 80 cents US. So we've had a nice progression. We've been very fortunate that way. And before I, answer the direct question in terms of opportunities, sure. I think it's important to note that the getting to NASDAQ has been a really arduous process. It's not easy, and we've been really committed to it. Because of the type of work we do with most of our customers in the U.S. and all the rest of it, it's an accelerant to what will happen with and for our business. Now, that said, when the stock, pre-rollback to get us onto NASDAQ was at a much higher level, and we took the calculated risk to have to roll it back to get there. To it's kind of like 2 forward, 1 back, and then hopefully another 4 or 5 forward. But I want to acknowledge the fact that our stock is down and we've taken a hit in the market because of it. And we appreciate the shareholders that are working with us and sticking with us and the such. But it really is strategically the best thing for the company, for the shareholders as a whole, in order to do this. The week that we priced, I just also want to point out that in the month of July, of the 34 small cap offerings that happened, 24 of them were underneath their offering price, and only 2 were above 10% of their offering price. Also, in the week that we priced to do the financing and uplist, 3 IPOs were pulled. Robinhood was big underwater. I mean, it was a very tough.
A lot of the big IPOs have struggled, but we're not too worried. Like, sure, it'd be great if everything was roses right off the bat, right, Cam? What shareholder, you and I, who would want that? But this is really about turbo boosting the company's next phase of growth. Because I've had a couple of companies now go from junior markets to the NASDAQ. And what I saw, first of all, great capital market stuff, higher share price, everyone's happy, after the first 12 months. But what I really noticed was the biz development side. And that's because Georgecom may have wanted to do business with Draganfly all this time, love their technology, but I'm a big US company. And I'm figuring, you know what, they're a Canadian, they're listed on a Canadian stock exchange. I'm not sure. Getting to NASDAQ changes all that. It's amazing how many people it takes off the fence. I know it's early, you just got there, but are you seeing any rumblings of that where suddenly potential customers are looking much more seriously at you?
Yeah, no question. And I'm surprised how quickly it's happened in terms of existing contracts that we're working on and where they're falling and just how you're viewed a little bit differently, but then also stuff that's already coming to the table, whether it's from the industry or from our bankers bringing stuff and such. The listing also brought us 40 new institutional shareholders to add to our 20,000 retail shareholders. So we've got a fantastic retail base now, which is really important in order to maximize or optimize that valuation. 4 of those institutional holders took 10% or more of the offering down. These are all long, multi-billion-dollar funds. Incredible due diligence. They are making very serious, and many of them names that are very well known in the space. And in fact, there's been further due diligence with at least two, but one very, very deeply on a particular piece of our technology that they are like, they want to write much bigger checks and do some specific biz dev with some other companies in their portfolio because of the tech that we have. So, I mean, and that was on day 2.
Yeah, and I believe you because I've seen that happen. It just, the light flips and away you go.
Yeah. So we're really honored and don't take it lightly, the position that we're in, and are really, really committed to the process. And it never works out perfectly, but as a management team and a board, this company has done every single thing that it said it was going to do. Sometimes it's a little slower than we like, and sometimes it's not as perfectly as we like, but every single thing gets done, and we just need to keep that left foot, right foot path. And we've got a stated goal. We're looking to be number 1. Number 2 is fun and fine, but we want to be number 1, and that's exactly where we're aiming and what we intend to do.
And going back to what you said about the 4 large institutional investors, this is definitely a case of, look, it's not guaranteed, but you follow the smart money. I mean, these big funds got to where they got to by being very intelligent, very smart. They look under every rock before they make their investments. Clearly, they see great potential in the company. But more importantly, I think this is an important lesson now for all the retail investors, right? They're not looking at day by day, tick by tick, right? What they're looking at is, okay, is the business plan intact? And every 6 or 12 months, are they moving forward the way because they plan to be in these names the way I know it. I can't say these guys specifically, but for 3 to 5 years, right? This isn't a private placement where they can get out of the stock 4 months from now. Do you think, am I overstating that, or do you think that's the right lesson for retail now in order to get their confidence?
Well, certainly they look under every single rock, and they really, really examine things closely. And I'll be candid, I learned a ton. The entire management team learned a ton in the process, and I think our business is better because of it. There's many strategic things or little blind spots that we had that these funds who did invest actually brought to us and have actually worked out solutions, and we're adjusting some strategies in particular verticals in order to manage. So we really do have value add partners in that regard. So the other thing that was overwhelmingly obvious to me, especially with the larger investors, was they 2 seminal events happened in the drone industry in the last 18 months, 2 years at most. One is regulatory clarity. So there is regulatory clarity now coming out almost monthly now as to how drones can be used, where they can be used. So what that means is industry can take their use cases, right? Build out a use case, build an ROI around it, and then bring something to the table and say, this is what we need to accomplish. Who can do it? And they look around and Draganfly is a solution provider. So we can provide a turnkey solution. So we've gone from, selling our hearts out and educating, until we can't talk and write or anything anymore, to the point where it's inbound, right? And the size of those customers now is that they're inbounding is bigger and bigger, and the size of the projects are more bold because there's that regulatory clarity. The second thing is the realization by government that nothing collects data better than a drone or delivers data better than a drone. And so both from a sentiment and a policy perspective, it's all now being focused on North American manufacturing. Listen, not in the consumer space or in the very small commercial space, but anything that's really serious and mission critical, which is data that businesses collect. It's US based in manufacturing. And so I've heard several times, not just from the large funds, but from multiple funds, they were like, this is the unrecognized industry. So many people are focused on EV and autonomy and all the rest of it. And they're like, wait a minute, there's going to be, X amount of millions of cars that are autonomous on the road in the next number of years. There's going to be tens of millions of drones that are going to be in that same category, doing new functions and performing existing functions, because that regulatory clarity is coming. And they're desperately looking for who can deliver those types of solutions. There's no other company that's got 23 years of experience doing it. So just overnight, the people we're attracting, not just in terms of customers and investors, but engineers and biz dev, like that type of stuff has really been an impact already in the first week.
So Cam, short-term share price concerns. I'm glad you really addressed those right off the bat. But short-term share price, little disappointments or vibe right now. Is it fair to say that Draganfly is in the strongest position it's ever been in, and serendipitously, you guys listing on the NASDAQ, getting your war chest filled up right as government and regulations are leading the change necessary for your industry to really finally recognize its true potential?
If you look at, I think I can say this with certainly a high degree of confidence, that if you look at every financial fundamental on a per share basis, we are stronger today than we were ever. When the stock pre-rollback was at $3 or $4, it was great. But if we look at the underlying value on a per share basis today, even to mention the potential, it's multiples of that. And so we see a bit of an irrationality happening, and maybe emotion or or concerns about speculating on warrants that might come out, or which I get several questions about. Hey, there's a bunch of warrants coming out, and people not realizing that those warrants are priced like at the market, have a hold period, and you really got to. These are the things,
and they're good for the company because they keep putting more money in your coffers.
It's non-dilutive capital. It's already figured into the cap table. So they're held by 8,000 people. So it's nothing hits the market hard. And so this is the type of work that those institutions did. So the institutions did a financing that was above a warrant price that we only did back in February. So we talk about, hey, the price is down, but the reality is the financing value is up. And we've got really smart money putting money in at higher levels than warrants were done, that are 2 years, that have a 2 year tail on them, that were done in February. So, these are the things that when you really start to understand that, you get a very clear picture of where the stock should go.
And I'll say this, just personal opinion, 2016, I started banging the table in esports. People thought I was crazy. And by 2020, our first esports client on the NASDAQ. 2018, I started beating the table on drones, and specifically drones as transportation, as unmanned vehicles, and the role they're going to play in society. And people started thinking I was crazy, but that seems to be coming to a head as well. It seems like that's now realistically within earshot. So are drones about to go through their parabolic shift, parabolic growth period in the next 3-4 years? Is this now the breakthrough time?
Well, maybe surprisingly, George, if you would have told me that in 2018, I as a drone guy, I would have disagreed with you. I'd have been like, listen, Pizza Hut's not delivering pizza boxes in the next few years. And I actually don't think that's the biggest part of the drone delivery market. But I'm like, and that's not true. It is the inflection point has happened. Now, we've been waiting 20 years for that inflection point to happen, right? So very credible analysts are saying, look, the drone industry at the smallest estimate I can find is that the drone industry today is at $20 billion. Now, 90% of that's military, right? 10% of it makes up, commercial, and even the of that 10% is really very light commercial and consumer drone. It's projected by 2028 to go to $40 billion. That's the least pretend. I've seen some reports from very credible, big six firms that are $500 billion. So discount all of that and just say it's going to $40 billion. The majority of that's happening in North America. And the only reason it won't happen is capacity isn't going to keep up. So your vision back in 2016, 2018 is spot on. And I wouldn't have believed it at the time. But I can tell you now, based on the pipeline and the work that we're doing, it's beyond real. It's happened. Now the market might not quite see it yet, because that's always a trailing indicator a bit. But even over the next few quarters, much less the next year, the drone industry is going to be viewed at like the EV or the autonomous car industry. That's just how big it's scaling now.
Yeah, everyone's got their eye on autonomous vehicles and they're happening. But for me, autonomous in the sky is where big change, and people don't see it. They don't see that coming. And people who see that coming and then therefore put their attention on Draganfly, will probably be well served. I mean, look, I can't make decisions for people at home. You've got to do your due diligence. But to me, it's a no-brainer. And I got it right on esports. I know I'm going to get it right on this. And Draganfly, is one of the leaders. So you've got.
Well, the theme is autonomy, right? So if you follow like some of the great analysts out there, and they got their buckets of themes, and the theme is autonomy, and the majority of that focus is in autonomous vehicles. But when you think about everything else, that autonomous vehicles is about this much of industrial autonomy, but the reality is the other big category in there that's probably even likely bigger is air autonomy, and that's where we're lucky enough to be playing.
Yeah. I know you can't give us numbers, and maybe you'll put them in your earnings report next week, maybe not, but how does the pipeline look? Is it where you expect it to be? Is it better than you expected it to be? Is it less than you expected it to be? How's the pipeline look and how's it filling up? How's the rate of change?
Yeah, our pipeline issues revolve around capacity and resourcing right now. 3 weeks ago or 6 weeks, we have close to $40 million, on the balance sheet now. And and not that financing was an issue when we only had $20 million on the balance sheet, but now we're in a position to meet that capacity. So that's a big kind of like, check mark in terms of like,
right.
Putting the rest of the pieces in place, which we're down the path of. And so if we can meet, we will not meet capacity. Our capacity will not meet demand. That just, it won't happen. It doesn't have to though, in terms of throwing down some great results. And, we've had, a couple 100% year-over-year growth, 50% Q-over-Q growth. We're reporting earnings again next week. I don't see any change in trend in terms of how we've been performing and how we'll continue to perform. If we're not performing at that level, it's for some other reason other than market demand. But I don't expect us not to be performing.
Oh yeah. I don't think there's surprises coming on the downside. That's for sure. By the way, it's important because you did mention that extra $20 million. You're right. You could have done a lot with the 20 you had, but the extra 20 gives you a lot more capacity. I think it's important also. A small lesson for people watching at home. The investors don't make that investment because they want to buy stock. Yes, they're getting stock, but they're giving you that 20 million because they're confident that you're going to be able to take that 20 million and grow substantially from that, right? That's essentially why they're doing it. And obviously the stock is the bet they're making. But I think sometimes investors don't quite understand that. Maybe it's good to revisit that here, that they didn't give you 20 million because they want $20 million worth of stock. If they didn't have the confidence that you could take that 20 million and do some R&D and do some other growth initiatives, then they wouldn't have given it to you in the first place. Doesn't matter how cheap your stock is. How are you looking to deploy that 20 million? Is it ramping up capacity, engineers, developers, AI people, so that you can take on more and more projects as fast as you can?
Yeah, it's the vast majority of it is all about meeting demand, right? So that's product development based on customer demand. So we have the great luxury of not, I couldn't count the amount of times of saying like, you have this IP portfolio, you've developed these projects, you've put out AI into the space that can read heart rates from respiratory rates from cameras, and you had $500,000 of R&D last year. Like what's not making sense here? So I would have loved to say, well, we're just that smart and all that kind of stuff. And we're not. We're hardworking. But the reality is it's customer projects that funded that R&D, and that will continue to be our strategy for two reasons. One, it's great for the balance sheet and great, not for creating unnecessary overheads. But more importantly, what we're developing is going into the market today. We're commercializing, we're not developing. And so everything that we have coming out in that product input that we're using with this capital is all based on what customers are wanting right now. So that's where the vast majority of that capital will go, is meeting product demand that customers are asking for. And of course, we're in an innovative space, so it'll be new products and new IP and stuff that come out of it. Now, certainly we'll have some working capital, we'll have a prudent reserve, and then we'll have M&A. And M&A is going to be an important part of our strategy. It is an important part of our strategy going forward. And there's two types of companies that we're really looking for. The one type is maybe something that has IP that is already in market or ready to go, that we need to service into a customer immediately. If it's some great piece of IP that's 3 or 4 years away, that's not interesting to us because we have really strong IP development capabilities. And so that infrastructure is less expensive for us to do that rather than purchase it. But if it's for a customer need right now, we'll go after it. The second is really about capacity. Now, there's no other drone companies out there to buy. Believe it, it certainly that can't move the needle, right, at all. So the type of capacity that we're looking to buy is in the advanced composite space, the advanced electronics, advanced machining, those types of things that will adjunct to our existing manufacturing facilities and really allow us to, one, accelerate our capacity, but also there's some capability issues in there that, not issues, there's some capability opportunities in there that will take some of our drone designs and innovation to the next level.
I can't wait to see what kind of press releases are going to be coming out between now and the end of
I'm like giddy, I know.
Those kind of things and the kind of opportunities, and where people can say, wow, I didn't think that someone would want that solution, using drone and AI for that specific kind of solution and that kind of, so that's going to be amazing. And I'd ask you more, but you can't be more specific without breaking the rules. So, the securities regulation. So let's go on to an example of the kind of things you're doing. And we'll end it there because I think it's important to remind everyone that the business keeps continuing. Press release: Draganfly commences training for Texas EMS drone delivery services. So you're currently in phase 1 as part of your cold chain delivery system contract, training EMS drone delivery support personnel. Put that into English for people who are just watching for the first time, a little bit layman's terms, and talk about that opportunity as one example of the kind of things that you're doing.
So cold chain delivery services, which is a sub of cold chain technology services, is one of the largest logistics providers for vaccine delivery and logistics in the United States, and now also medical equipment. So they provided the entire state of Texas with COVID vaccines, the entire city of Chicago, and on, and not just COVID and vaccine stuff, but I mean, lots of different stuff in the medical space and equipment and such. And so they're standing up a delivery service, and completely powered by Draganfly. And so to give you a sense of the differentiator that Draganfly brings to the table, doing delivery is one thing into remote areas or out onto oil rigs or into challenged locations. And what I mean by a challenged location, it might be a location that already has a widespread infection, and you don't want to bring in more people into that population, or it might be a disaster relief area. So think about a firefight, a fire zone where you've got roads that are cut off and you've got to get people into you've got to get equipment into a community. It might be something as simple as water or as complex as medicine, or even firefighting equipment at some level, or a flood or a hurricane or things like that. This is a real use case scenario that has immediate ROI. And now that there's regulatory clarity about how these drones can be used in those situations and processes to be able to fly in those situations, companies are going, hey, wait a minute, now this is efficient, and if we don't do this, it's irresponsible not to deliver this type of stuff. So we're training pilots right now in how to fly. We're training personnel in how to receive, handling situations, emergency response situations, and such. Now, the big differentiator and a great example of how we develop something based on a customer requirement, and now it's porting into other industries, would be the vital intelligence technology we have. So the drones that we're using in these situations and training for are actually the first responders into, let's call it a hurricane scenario, right, or a fire where there's a community that's cut off. So you're flying these drones in, you're flying equipment in. They can be flying with all the proper exemptions, rules, check marks, all that kind of stuff. They can be flying beyond line of sight and even in some cases autonomously. And in those cases, they're delivering equipment. But at the same time, like the entire drone industry really is made up of two categories. And those two categories are either delivery or data. And they're intrinsically meshed together. And this is a great example of it because you're delivering equipment or such into these locations. But at the same time, that drone is delivering data back to the trucks that are rolling that aren't there yet. So you can't get a massive boots into an area, but you can get 3 or 4 drone pilots or 10 drones moving and running and going. And as they're giving environmental data, they're giving personnel data, they're giving population data. They're even measuring the vital signs of the survivors on the ground, the heart rates, the respiratory rates, the blood pressures, and they're sending all that back. So as these trucks are rolling, they know critical areas, right? Where either the helicopters go or the trucks got to go, or where they need to triage. That's like lifetime real use case on scale.
That's right out of the movies. That's right out of the movies where you got the robots who can see what's going on first and letting the humans know here's what's coming, let everyone prepare, let everyone do their job much better. And the implications are massive, right? Saving lives, saving structures, all of that. It's just amazing what rolls from that.
Yeah, and the delivery is incredibly important, but the data that comes out of it and the intel that you get, and now the integrated approach to be able to do it, and that's one use case, and it just as an example, and there's
and you can take this global, right, Cam? This example of this specific application, there isn't a corner of the world that doesn't. We saw fires in Australia. We've seen hurricanes in the US. We've seen massive flooding in Germany. You see it everywhere. I mean, this technology can go global, right? This is a perfect example of creating an application that could instantly have RFPs for it all around the world.
Yeah, and we're deploying it today. And I don't know anybody else that's deploying it today. Lots of people want to do it and talk about it. And we're overwhelmed with inbound requests and when can you get to us and all the rest of it.
Oh, boy.
And we got 23 years of history of doing this. I mean, Draganfly drone was the first drone to save a human life, and that drone sits in the Smithsonian today. We can do this. We're going to do this, and it's going to be a better world because of it.
I love the term "overwhelmed with inbound requests." Yeah. It's the little pieces of content like that tell us a lot about where the business is going. The last part is earnings next week. I know you can't talk to us about any specifics there, but should all shareholders be tuning in?
Absolutely. We'd love to have them tune in and entertain their questions. And, we try to run a candid operation at the level of transparency that's appropriate and legal. But yeah, we want to address concerns and issues that maybe have been happening with the stock. And moreover, we want to talk about the results that we're getting. And, we're never shy. We've never hidden behind any results, and luckily we don't have to because they're good results.
Well, 2020 revenue was up 216%. Record Q1 revenue, and that was for the period ended March 31st, was up 210%. So I've got some confidence that pattern of growth will probably be continuing. And buddy, not just this quarter. I mean, that's going to be great, but for serious investors, I know I am. We're looking 12, 24, and 36 months down the road, because this is now the age for drones and drone solutions and drone applications like the world has never seen. Everyone's focused on electric vehicles and maybe unmanned autonomous electric vehicles, but the entire drone space is about to go through an unbelievable paradigm shift.
There's a lot more airspace than there is ground space.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's just geographics, if not anything else. And we're looking forward to next week. Percentage wise, listen, $4.5 million. I mean, it's crazy. That for a commercial drone manufacturer, we're still one of the largest at that number, which is almost embarrassing. But I don't see an insight in the terms of the growth that will happen. And so, to go to 4 to 8 to 16 and on, it's entirely possible. And it's ours to win now.
Well, everyone at home's got to do their due diligence, and that starts with watching great interviews like this, and then going to do their due diligence, tuning into the earnings call next week. But in the meantime, Cam, congratulations on getting the ball over the line, getting the NASDAQ listing. People think it's probably a lot easier than it is because figure, hey, fill out some paperwork and it's an application, but it's not. The fact that you guys got over that hump is great. But now the opportunities are gonna be several in the capital markets and on the biz dev side. And congratulations for doing that, because that's tremendous value for shareholders that some will not understand. But trust me, guys, for everybody watching this, getting on the NASDAQ completely changes everything for these companies. And there's no doubt that it's going to change everything for Draganfly.
George, you're always so gracious. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, buddy. Can't wait to have you back, and see you next week on the Q2 call.
Thank you.
For everybody at home, you've been watching or you've been listening by podcast on Spotify, Google, Apple, your favorite podcast platform, to Cameron Shell. He's chairman and CEO of Draganfly, trades on the NASDAQ. Love saying that for the first time, under DPRO, and in Canada under DPRO as well. For those new to the story, because you've just, I know, in fact, I've already seen some of my followers from the US who invested in our esports clients and been happy with that. After they got to the NASDAQ, now we're actually starting to pick up positions in Draganfly because they see it's on the NASDAQ. So if you're new and you need to start your due diligence, get to Agoracom, get to the Draganfly profile page, because we know there's a lot of new stuff here that's not the easiest thing to understand sometimes. And we give you a good 10,000 foot overview, so you got a great view of the company and what it's doing. But then to do your deeper dive due diligence, you can see it. You can get there from Agoracom. You can see it right above Cam right now. Get to draganfly.com. Do your deep dive due diligence. Just don't tell us 12, 24, and 36 months from now that we didn't tell you so. Have a great day. See you next time. Hey guys, this video is over, but don't forget to help your company by liking it and then leaving a comment below. And then don't forget to help yourself by subscribing to our channel so you don't ever miss another great Agoracom small cap video.